Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with yet another update for my Panda palette. We are now 4 months into the project and I'm getting some good progress, and I'm really excited to share that with you today as well. If you don't know, I am panning the Soft Glam palette from Anastasia. This is my second time panning an Anastasia palette. I have previously panned the Modern Renaissance palette. Last year I took a break and I panned I had like a bit of a shit show with my Panda palette last year. I panned the NYX Tutorials and B2B palette first, but then I realized I didn't like that palette that much, so I switched to the Huda Beauty Gold Obsessions palette. But this year I am panning this palette, like I said, and I'm really enjoying it so far, and I can't wait to share with you where I am with it today. But before I jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So I'm just going to start by rolling the footage here, what the palette has been looking like. So this is the introduction, what it looked like at that point. So I already had a couple pans in this palette at the start of the year, and it was an already well-loved palette in my collection. It has always been a really nice, like, sultry, kind of warm tone palette for me, and I have really enjoyed wearing this one, and it was always like a special occasion palette. Whenever I wanted to go for like a neutral look, for going out, to seeing friends, I reached for this palette, so it was very well loved. It was also quite old in my collection, so I think I had this one since maybe 2017. Yeah, I think something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I think around that time, most likely 2017 if I remember correctly. But yeah, this one I have reached for quite a bit. But yeah, this again is what it's been looking like over the past year, and I think right now you should be looking at what it looked like last month. And this is where I am with this palette today, so you can see where it is today, the differences, all of that good stuff, and I'm really excited to share with you the differences since last month and go through with you the goals. So for simplicity's sake, I'm also going to have the progress pictures up here so you can see the palette, and I don't have to hold it up all the time, so you can actually see the differences from last month to this month too. So let me start going through the usage. So first up in the palette, we have the shade Tempera, which is a nice setting shade. And this is one that I have pretty good progress on. As you can see, even last month, I had a really big pan. Since the last month, I have reached for this one 13 times, which is actually the lowest in this project so far. But that's fine. I know that we're going to finish this one easy this year anyway. And I just was focusing on other things this past month, which is why I didn't get as much use out of this one, but that's fine. So that is the first shade. Next to that, we have the shade Glistening, which I didn't use at all. This is like a light kind of goldy shade, but yeah, I didn't reach for it this past month. The third shade in the palette we have is Orange Soda. This is a beautiful kind of creamsicle kind of shade that I love using in my crease. This month, I didn't reach for this one too much either. I reached for it 4 times, which I'm happy with, but this is definitely one that I'm going to get lots more use out of in summer, I am sure. And I know I did a lot of more kind of cool tone looks this month, which is also something you can see in this palette overall. I don't have as much use in this palette as I normally do, mainly because I did more cool tone looks. So a lot of the shades in here were too warm for that, including Orange Soda. We have the next shimmer, which is Rose Pink, and this is another one that I didn't use in the past month. I actually haven't reached for this one at all in the past 2 months. I have 16 uses on it in the project, so I have used it in the project. But yeah, in the past month, I just didn't reach for this one, which is fine. I think, again, I'm going to finish this one quite easily this year. It's relatively thin in the pan. If you look at like the pan, hopefully you can see that that is quite thin. So yeah, I'm not worried about it, that when I start focusing on it, it's going to go quite quickly, but I just haven't been feeling that shade very much, which is why I didn't reach for it in the past month. Then next up, we had another shimmer, but this one I finished up last month, and that was the shade Sultry, which was like a kind of dark bronzy rosy shade, and that one took me 61 uses to finish, but again, that is gone since last month. Then next to that, we have the shade Bronze, which is one that I used a lot in the last month. Well, not a lot, but I did focus on it last month, and I used it 6 additional times for a total of 10 uses. And as you can see, I was able to pan on this shade, which I'm really happy with. I love the shade. It's a nice kind of bronzy gold, but it's not too yellowy gold. I mean, it's quite warm, but yeah, it's not as warm as other things, so I feel like it's quite versatile, and I loved pairing this one with loads of other shadows that I was panning. So Bronze, I was able to pan on the last month, which I'm really pleased with. Then next to Bronze, we have the shade Mulberry, which I also have used quite a lot in the past month. I have 11 uses on it in the past month, which is my highest uses so far, and I have 22 uses on it in total. I already had pan on this one at the beginning of the year though, but this one is one of my favorite shades in the palette. I just love kind of the reddier brown undertone. It just gives a little bit of a different take on a dark brown. It doesn't look too red on the eyes, but I feel like in general it just gives a little bit of a hint that is different from other deep browns, which is what I really like about it. But that is the last shade on the top row. Moving on to the second row, we have the shade Dusty Pink next, and this one is more of a cool tone shade, so I reached for this one a little bit more, but not too much still. I only have 4 uses on it in total in the past month. And that is because I'm still planning another shade in my pan of eyeshadows called Colada, which is also a cool transition shade, and I was focusing on that one more because I want to roll it out on my pan of eyeshadows project. But this shade has 21 uses on it in total so far in the project. Next to that, we have the shade Fairy, which is another one of the shimmer shades. It's actually the last shimmer shade in the palette. And this is another one that I haven't reached for too much. I only used it once in the past month for a total of 5 in the project. But it's one, again, I'm going to reach for more, I believe, in summer rather than right now. So that's the next shade. The third shade on the bottom row is the shade Burnt Orange. And this is a really nice transition shade. It's one of my favorite shades, again, in the palette because it's just so easy to reach for. And this one is getting quite a big dip. I don't know if you can pick it up on camera right there. I think you can see it right there. But again, that is getting quite a big dip. And in the past month, I reached for this one 5 additional times. And I now have 30 uses on it in total in the project. So quite a lot. And obviously this one had use on it before. I know like Anastasia mattes are quite known to be quite easy to pan on, but something about this palette is quite hard. I feel like most of the shades are quite firmly pressed in here, so it's not the easiest to pan on, but that's fine because I'm getting some good use on them. But this one is definitely one I'm getting close to. I'm going to discuss my goals later, but yeah, I might try to pan on this one in the next month. Then next to that, we have the shade Sienna, which I pan on, I think, in the first month of this year. No, second month of this year. So back in February, I hit pan on this shade. But I have continuously expanded the pan, and I reached for it 3 additional times in the past month. And I don't know if you can see any difference, but I'm hoping you can see a little bit of movement at least. And I do really like this shade too. It's quite similar to Mulberry in that like it has a bit of a more reddy undertone, which I really, really like. So this one is one that I love reaching for quite a bit. And this is actually also one of the more powdery mattes in this palette, which makes it go a little bit faster than the rest. Next to that, we have another deep brown. There's a lot of deep browns in this palette, and that is the shade Rustic. This one has a bit more of a kind of sandier, kind of, if anything, like a camely, sandy undertone to it, but it's just a deep brown, to be honest. This one I reached for 2 times in the past month, so not too much again, but I'm tending like not to reach for this part of the palette too much anymore because I don't like going for super deep looks right now. Maybe that would change. I think when we go into like summer, when I have a bit more of a tan, I would reach for them more because I feel like then they won't be so stark on my skin tone. And then also when we get into autumn, I think I'm going to reach for those shades a bit more too. But right now I'm just not feeling super deep looks, which is why I'm not reaching for these shades too much. However, next to that we have the shade Cypress Umber, which is I think a shade that is a lot of Anastasia palettes, at least in this one and in the whatever it is, which I also pan. So I have actually panned this shade before. Both this one and Burnt Orange are repetitive shades. So I have gone through them completely before, but I'm panning them again in this palette, which is fine. But Cypress Umber is another one that I focused on in the last month to hit pan on, and as you can see I was able to do that. I'm really happy with that. It took me 8 additional uses to hit pan on it for a total of 32, so that is the shade right there, and I'm really happy with that pan. Then last in the palette we had the shade Noir, which I'm going to skip over very quickly because I didn't use this one at all in the past month. I just again haven't been feeling super deep looks, which is why I didn't reach for this black, but that is the full usage for this palette. If you watched my last update, you might remember what my goals were for the last month, but I did have a goal in the past month just to play around with the palette, but the main goal was to hit 2 pans. And if you have been keeping track of this palette, I talked about it, and I was actually able to hit 2 more pans in the shade Bronze right here, as well as in Cypress Umber. So those 2 are 2 new pans, which means that I was able to hit my goal, and I'm really happy with that. And it also means that I only have 4 shades now left with pan. We have Dusty Rose, we have Burnt Orange, Rustic, and Noir. So like these 4 mattes right here don't have pan, but I'm getting quite close to having pan on majority of the palette. I mean, I already have pan on the majority of the palette, but I'm getting close to having pan on all of the palette. So that is my goals for last month. I'm going to discuss my goals for next month after I talk about the weights, but I'm going to go into the weights now. So overall in the past month, I haven't reached for this palette as much as I usually do. I think I used to be spreading myself a little bit thin with eyeshadow projects, and I've been going for a bit like lighter looks. Again, I keep repeating that, but I haven't been going for like 9 eyeshadows in each look. I've been going for more like, you know, using only 4 or 5, which is still like a decent amount of eyeshadows in each look, but it also means that I can reach for less eyeshadows in each look, and this palette has just been falling a little bit to the wayside. I still really enjoy panning it, but yeah, I just been kind of taking a little bit of a break from it in the past month. But again, I think now when we're getting into the warmer weather, although it's still freezing in the UK, like we had a little bit of a heat wave, but now it's gone back to being really cold. Like I wear my winter coat still every day to like going to work or whatever. Like if I go outside, most of the time I wear my winter coat every single day. So it's not the most fun time, but that's fine. I think as soon as the weather warms up, I'm going to be more inclined to reach for these warm tones. And I think I'm also going to get more use out of it then. But again, I'm going to talk about the weights right now. So quick recap, if you haven't been watching the updates, I'm probably going to end up being quite repetitive, but I want to include it anyway because you probably won't remember the numbers either way. But this palette has an advertised weight of 10.36 grams in it. Which means that I have to use 0.86 grams per month to be on track to finish the whole palette. That is obviously taking in consideration that the palette was brand new, but I'm still using that as like a guideline because sometimes palettes have more product than they advertise. And also if I use this as advertised, like if I use this as a guideline, I will definitely finish the palette before the end of the year if I stick to that. So that's my guideline. At the introduction of the year, it weighed 162.70 grams. So that is kind of my starting point. And I'm not going to go through each month. I did the same for my Fan Art Face palette. I'm just going to go through like what I used up in quarter 1 now when I've gone past that. So in quarter 1, I used up 2.11 grams of the palette, which is pretty good. And if I were to be on track, I should have used up 2.58 grams. So I was 0.47 grams behind, so almost half a gram, which is fine. Again, I had some use on this palette since before, so I'm not too worried about it. But that is where I was at the last update at quarter 1. And at that point, the palette weighed 160.59 grams. However, in the last update, I discussed that I took a little bit of glistening right here out of the palette and used to the Franken my highlighter in my year-long project pan. So I took out 0.13 grams for that. So the palette at that point weighed 160.46 grams. So that is my starting point from last month. Today, the palette weighs 160.03 grams, which means that I have used up 0.43 grams in the past month, just like judging from where it was when I weighed the palette last time to now. So obviously I'm a bit behind. I am actually only used up half that I should in the past month, which is not great. But again, I know that I've been taking a little bit of a break from this palette in the past month, and I feel like sometimes you need to do that. But I'm definitely ready to kind of use this more now in the next month because I've had a little bit of break from it. I've been using other things, and I'm getting really excited to use this one again now. So I'm really excited to get some more weight used up next month for this. I do also want to discuss that Franken weight. So like I said, I used up 0.13 grams in a Franken highlighter, and I'm not quite done with that. I'm actually wearing that highlighter today, both on my cheeks and on my inner corner. But that is very, very close to being done. It's definitely going to be done by the next update for this project. So at that point, I'm going to add in the 0.13 grams into like the total amount used. So I'm going to add it into my weight for next month. So between this update and the next update, I'm going to add that weight in. Just know that a lot of that weight was also used up this month. So I think majority, actually maybe like 0.1 grams been used up this month. And then maybe 0.03 grams is going to be used up next month, just estimating, considering how much I have left of that highlighter. But yeah, majority of it has been used up this month, but I just wanted to like clarify that I'm not going to add that into this weight until I actually have finished up the highlighter fully. So in total, so far this year, I have used up 2.54 grams of this palette, which I'm really, really happy with. It means that it's moving along, and yeah, I'm excited to see how far I can get with this one in this year. And again, that's 2.54 is excluding the Franken highlighter. But yeah, that is all the weight. Let me move on to the goals before I wrap up this video. So for next month, I do have a couple goals. Yeah, I'm going to go through them, but let's start with the big kind of goal, the main goal, and that is going to be to finish up Tempera. So as you can see, Tempera don't have too much left in it, and I think it's going to be easy to finish up. I've been slacking a little bit on it because I knew that I was going to be able to finish it up at some point, but I'm ready to have a second finished shade from this palette. So Tempera is going to be my main goal to focus on, and I'm going to try to finish that up. So that is goal number 1. For goal number 2, I want to hit one additional pan in this palette, and that is going to be for burnt orange right here. Like I said, it has a big dip already. Like, it's not like I'm super close to pan, but I can see that it's getting closer. So I want to use that one so I can hit pan on it. And that means that I would only have 3 shades left to hit pan on, which is Dusty Rose, Rustic, and Noir. So I'm really excited to work on that one. And I do think I can hit pan on it quite easily. So that is going to be my second goal. Then my third goal is going to be regarding the shimmers. So in March, I had a goal for this palette to use every single matte 10 times, which was quite difficult. I didn't quite hit that goal because, I mean, this palette is majority mattes. But for the month of May, so moving forward, I can't believe we're already almost in May. But for May, I do want to reach for every single shimmer in this palette 10 times instead. So yeah, I'm going to try to reach for Glistening, Fairy, Rose Pink, and Bronze. There's 4 shimmers left in the palette. So these 2 shades right here, this shade, and this shade. I'm going to try to reach for these 10 times each, which I think should be doable. So that is going to be my final goal. And I think with that, hopefully I can get some good weight moved out of this palette. Especially I think moving out Tempera, that's going to be like a shade gone, and it's going to be a lot of like eyeshadow out and finished. So hopefully that's going to help with my weight. Same with like hitting pan on a burnt orange. That's also going to help with the weight. And then obviously like reaching for the rest of the palette and reaching for the shimmers 10 times should also help with that. And hopefully I can catch up a little bit with the weight. My goal for next month is going to be to try to surpass the 0.86 grams I have to reach on average, just because I have been a bit behind in the last couple of months. But that is going to be it for my update today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know how you're doing with your Panda palette down below. As always, I love hearing from you guys. Sorry, my camera just cut me off, but I'm going to wrap up this here very quickly. I hope you guys are having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys.